Hello viewers, once again welcome to imokili.tv. I'm Semakula Muhammad. Alongside me is Mr. Nkunda, Dismas, a journalist. We are here to discuss matters concerning the appearance and practices of Uganda police. Actually, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
You will tell our audience who you really
Well, my name is Dismas Nkunda, as I rightly said. I began way back as a journalist with the Monitor newspaper when it started in 1992. Went on to become Uganda's investigative journalist for that year, 1992. Became a senior sub-editor at the Monitor, then eventually with a group of colleagues, journalists, others, we started and founded what was called the Crusader newspaper, along with another 11 colleagues. We ran it for a period of probably about 2 to 4 years. After that, I left to study and I joined the human rights world. So right now I worked in New York for about 5 years for Lawyers Committee for Human Rights. I was their Africa director. And then I returned to Uganda in 2004 to continue doing work on human rights. And currently I head an organization called the International Refugee Rights Initiative, which is based here in New York.
I'll begin with your column. You recently wrote in the Weekly Observer that your relative, one of your relatives, was robbed, and actually, when you reported the matter to the police, they started asking her questions that you called irrelevant, that her tribe, village of Bad. What were you trying to mean there?
See, I was trying to say that the Uganda police has kind of not moved out of the legacy that was left by the colonial police, in which an individual has had to be identified by first of all looking at the person's tribe. What is the essence of knowing my tribe if I'm reporting a case? My view would be that if I have an identity that shows I'm a Ugandan, what tribe I come from is irrelevant and immaterial, unless they are doing some statistical calculation of finding out how many more people commit crimes. I come from Kisoro and you say, okay, he's a Mufumbira, there are many Bafumbiras, or he's a Muganda, there are many Ugandas who commit crime. So I find it a bit archaic, the manner in which the police does that. I think it needs to live up to other standards of identifying an individual, but without necessarily torturing an individual when a person is reporting the case.
Yes. So that's what we're trying to mean.
That's what I was trying to mean. This person was robbed, her car was entered into, and all her documents, her money was taken. Instead of police doing the usual of writing her report, which can use to be able to get back her passport, her ATM, all the things that were robbed, they instead spent the whole day trying to explain herself who she is. I think that is not what police is supposed to be. It's supposed to be keeping a law order, making sure that it's a quick fix of being able to give you your answers as fast as can. The civil servants, and one expects that to be done from people who pay taxes.
There's something I'm wondering with our police. Actually, they are moving with rifles on the streets, which is not actually the case with developed countries like UK, USA, where actually this happens in places, in key installation places like airports, sensitive government buildings. What does it show that they carry?
It's not actually. It's a culture in Uganda in which people have become identified to see a gun and you get scared. It's a culture that we inherited way back during the other turbulent times of Idi Amin, in which individuals look at a gun and look at it and say, okay, that is a symbol of intimidation.
Symbol of intimidation.
Probably there is no any single place I have been, and I've traveled quite wide and far, in which you see the number of guns that are on the streets in Uganda. Not only the police. The police certainly, that's one of the biggest groups that carry, AK-47s on the streets. Sometimes you see them holding them in the wrong way and you're fearing it's pointing in your direction. Any mistake, a bullet will go through your head.
Actually, to cut it short, Obama once commented that these guns, actually, they are best shooted in battlefield.
Those are not the.
I don't think Uganda has a battlefield because they move with it.
But that's what it means. It means that literally what means that the police, instead of looking at us as people they're protecting, it's as if we are at war with them. Otherwise, policing is not supposed per se to use intimidation of using guns as a means of controlling people. It's supposed to be policing. The word police is to police. It's to be able to look after people, and you detect who's about to commit a crime, and you get them shot. But when you move around with so many guns, everybody, that's why it's easy these days, because you know now the history of Uganda. After NRM came to power, so many people, students were taken to Chankwanzi for study, for training in the military. So any person, many people know how to use the gun. So to the extent that these guns are around, anyone can be able to grab it. It's hilarious. The state has become kind of policing the individual state of. It's like we are the enemies of the state. Meet a police person, you know this is a policeman. There are times in the past where an individual who is hurt would run to the police. Now people run away from the police. So the answer to you is simple, that there is something that has fundamentally has changed, simply because I think what has been done in the case of Uganda is to politicize the policing aspect of the Uganda police. And therefore the gun has become, because given that someone is not sure about what the population can or is capable of doing, and in particular given these things of the position, walk to work and everything, so it's a total intimidation by having the gun, so many soldiers patrolling on the street. Now you have security guards, you don't know how many there are. They all have, some have very sophisticated, I'm not going to mention any, some have some of the most sophisticated guns around. So it's a gun culture that we have to contend with.
Okay. There's something I'm wondering again. Do suspects have rights in Uganda? Because on many occasions, actually, we see the local citizens joining with police to fondle and molest the suspect. Is it because of training, poor training, this police gain, or because they do it as simply because they don't care?
I think it's just, they don't have the understanding of the law that they are breaking as the police. Okay. If they knew that the fundamental rights of a person, if, for example, I'm sure you have seen it somewhere, in the United States, if you say a person is going to be arrested, they read you what they call the Miranda rights.
Okay, Miranda rights.
Yeah.
What are those rights?
The Miranda rights is the rights that accrue to you. If the person is going to apprehend you, he will come to you and say, you have a right to be silent. You have a right to be silent. You have a right to a lawyer. Yeah. You have a right to communicate to your family.
Sure.
Okay, so they read you the rights that accrue to you as a person.
Sure.
Because you have basic human rights. Even you are not under the Uganda law. You are not guilty until proven so guilty. Right? So you are innocent. You are presumed innocent. Sure. So the question of this fondling, it's failure to understand, I think, the kind of teaching, the kind of training that the police go through to be able to understand. You are dealing with human beings, you're not dealing with gods.
For sure.
If they knew that, and that's why sometimes you find them they're bundling a person on a pickup as if a person is some heap of sweet potatoes or a bunch of matoke. So those are the standards, I think, which they have to get to. It's the manner of police understanding that you are arresting a human being. That person has a dignity. And in that dignity, you need to be able to tell the person, these are rights that accrue to you, and therefore respect them, and the person cooperates, unless if the individual who's going to be arrested is resisting arrest. Okay. That's a different matter. Okay. But what we see on television or in around in the right places, as long as they even suspect, and even the laws they use, there's a very interesting law that the police use. They can arrest even me and you here. They can arrest us. Sure. They can tell us, say that you are idle and disordered. What is being idle and disordered? It's the police who defines what is idle and disordered. If, for example, you went and sat on the street when you are tired, and the policeman looks at you suspiciously, can say, you know what, I'm charging you of being idle and disordered. So such laws that have remained on our law books and are used by police, certainly they don't help in any cause in the manner in which the police self-behaves.
Okay. Uganda police, they have a tendency of shooting live rounds in air. And sometimes even shooting above the heads of the rowdy people, citizens. And actually the end result is the injuries.
But it's not only...
do this kind of practices allowed international policing standards?
No, absolutely not. You don't use live ammunition. Are we at war?
No.
As local citizens armed, you exchange live ammunition with the person who's shooting at you. Period. But for them, it's the means by which they want to scare people. Like in the first question, we were discussing about using the gun, or the gun culture that has developed in this country, of everybody, a policeman walking with a gun. The essence is that because they don't want, they have curtailed so much the freedom of assembly, the freedom of association. The next thing is that if these people are going to defy, if you defy those parameters which they have said, no one should do this, no one should, they should be in a group, you shouldn't assemble as more as 100 people and start shouting, you are hurting other people. The next thing is tear gas, live ammunition.
Of course.
The end, these policemen, some of them, you can even, I was a student at the university when we had a strike, and 2 students were shot dead, simply because they were trying to control the crowds. 2 students, Tom Onyango and another Onyango, they were shot dead, simply because the police who shot, one said, let me see, maybe let me kill one and I see. Maybe some of them are trigger happy because they have never shot. It's the first time they are shooting. They end up shooting the crowd, killing people. I think there needs to be some form of rethinking about the whole use, how policing per se, from the way international standards define policing, should be applied in Uganda in order to safeguard what happens. People die. You have seen those pictures of women who were ripped through by guns, and photos are coming out simply because the policemen don't control the number of how they use their gun.
Sure. Another issue is there is this phenomenon of actually double cabin pickups. We usually see our policemen use. They are famously known being used by farmers in most countries, I can say. What is the secret behind using these cars, vehicles?
I don't
for routine policing.
For routine policing. I don't know whether the drama about that, or the iron about that, is that even there's one minister, I think it's the Minister of Health, which at one point I found they had bought pickups to use as ambulances.
Pickups to use as ambulances?
Yes, they had quite, each district was given a pickup to be an ambulance. So sometimes you wonder how an ambulance is going to, a person who is sick and is very deadly is going to be jumping up and down on that pickup on those bad roads of ours in our country. In the beginning, I think when we were growing up, some of the vehicles that were used by police were mainly Land Rovers, which are covered, right?
Yeah.
They were mainly Land Rovers made in Britain, and they would be covered, made purposely for police. The pickups we use are made for carrying goods and, produce, but those are the ones we use here for police. And 2 is that not even that, they're used for carrying suspects. There was a report that was published recently by the Uganda Human Rights Commission, in which they are condemning police for staffing a person whom they have just arrested and pushing them under those chairs on which the policemen sit, for purposes of making sure that they have controlled the person. I remember even the Inspector General of Police telling the police that action was very wrong. So I think it's what we have inherited. It's the wrong thing to do. I have seen lately maybe they have started using a few vans, very few funds, but those mainly are, I think, are preserved for the opposition leaders who walk to work and they want to arrest them in a more civil way. But pickups, I would have said that probably that's not the best way in which to be policing us at this time.
Is it because of money? What?
But they cost money too. Those pickups cost money. And 2 is that actually, if you look at them, even the cost of maintaining them is quite very high, given that these are real fuel guzzlers. So the efficiency with which they could get vehicles that can be able to do the same work with less expenditure on the taxpayers, certainly the pickups wouldn't have been. These are 3,600 cc's, and they consume quite a lot of money and fuel. So those are the kind of things that we are having about our Uganda police currently.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nkunda.
No problem.
Yeah.